Now remember the last video I made about Porsche completely ditching the electric version of their K1 massive SUV that's going to be bigger than the Cayenne, and it looks like they're completely just doing a 180 when they're with their EV plans. And I have a feeling, I said in that previous video that I was wondering how the 718 EV Cayman and the Boxster is going to sell. And I said that I think Porsche is very nervous about these models because as we see sports car EVs, they're really not doing well. Porsche knows this. They've been deep into development with these new EV 718s. So what they're doing right now is exactly what I thought was going to happen. I thought it was going to happen after a couple of years of the EVs being on sale, but it looks now that it's going to happen a lot quicker. So let's have a look at this article. We're going to jump into Photoshop. I'm going to show you these spy photos here and also these renderings, what I think of these. I'm going to link the Motor 1 article where these renderings come from and the Car Scoops article as well. I'm going to link both those down in the description if you want to go and check them out. So let's look at this article here because this is very, very interesting. Porsche is sneaking gas power back into the next 718. Who would have thought? Electric Boxster and Cayman to be joined by expensive combustion variants that only wealthy fans will be able to afford. Now this is also very, very interesting. If we go in and dissect, what does this really mean? To me, what it means is Porsche knows that the 718 EV Boxster and Cayman are not going to sell well. They've spent hundreds, probably millions of dollars developing these models. Now they feel like they need to recoup some of that expense. And that is why the next generation 718 with internal combustion engine versions are going to be more expensive. It's not a good, from a consumer standpoint, it's not good at all because I don't want to see them be extremely expensive for just wealthy fans. But if that's what Porsche needs to do to recoup some of these expenses that have been used for developing these EVs, that's probably what they're going to have to do. So Porsche confirms the 718 sports cars will now get an ICE range topper. Were developed purely as EVs to begin with, these new Cayman and Boxster 718. The combustion models, possibly badged RS, come later in the cycle. Will now get an ICE option, but only a small portion of buyers will be able to access it. This is, I think this is the wrong approach from Porsche. I don't want to see them be, very unique, $150,000 versions of the new 718s. I want them to be in the same price range as the old internal combustion engines, and I think that would also bring in more sales for the company. They don't need to price them extremely high. So plans to incorporate more combustion models in general, some of which will be highly emotional. See, everybody know the car companies, they know this. They know that the problem with EVs is that the driver does not have an emotional connection to the vehicle. Right now, I have an AMG GT, the new 63 AMG, as a press car for a week, and I have completely fallen in love with that car. I thought for 2025 model years, cars are just gonna generally feel dead. I feel like every new car I review, I don't have a connection to it, but this AMG GT, I have such a great emotional connection to the vehicle. The sound is great, and that goes for the 718 as well. Porsche knows that if you're just going to create EVs, you're just not going to get the same connection with the vehicle. So it is replacements for the Cayman GT4 and the GT4 RS and the 718 Spider could carry on with 6-cylinder petrol power or gas power. The regular 718 cars will still stick with a single or dual motor electric drivetrains. The 718 EVs will be introduced in 2026, but a presentation slide confirmed we'll have to wait until later in the model cycle to see the combustion halo cars. Maybe it is going to be 2 years or something like that. Here we see the slides that they're talking about. We have the sports cars, the Icon, the driving fun 718. This looks to be the old 718 there in the slide. And here we have adding new ICE and plug-in hybrid EVs offering towards the end of the decade. So it's still maybe a bit, some time away before we see this top internal combustion engine derivatives of the new 718. And here we have a close-up of that one. So very, very interesting to see that. And it sounds like there'll be the most expensive versions you can buy of the new 718. The combustion cars might also be quicker around the track. That is pretty surprising to me, because usually EVs are very, very quick. And now we're starting to see, specifically from Chinese companies, they're starting to develop some, well, like seriously good handling for EVs as well. But they say here, we reported earlier this year that Porsche was struggling to get the new EV prototypes to handle as well as the outgoing internal combustion engine versions. That just goes to show the engineering that Porsche puts into their internal combustion engines. And I think they've been tweaking it, refining their sport models, the Cayman Boxster and the 911 for so long that even if you have an electric drivetrain, it still cannot handle as good as the refinement that's been happening over decades for the internal combustion engine cars. Very interesting there. Porsche also confirmed at the same time that it was backtracking on its electric SUV plans. For example, the Macan will no longer only be an EV, and the SUV flagship, the K1, which we talked about in the previous video, which was also planned as an EV, now won't get a battery electric vehicle version at all. Instead, it's going to have a combination of hybrids and internal combustion engine versions. Here we see some spy photos of the new Cayman. The design for this looks very, very good. It does not look at all like an EV. It looks ready to put an engine back here or in the middle right here with the proportions that we have here. It looks very, very good, this thing. A lot better than the new Cayenne and the new K1. This looks like a proper Porsche to me. Very, very cool. So we're going to jump into Photoshop here and have a look at the design and the renderings, and why I think these renderings are close but not on point when it comes to what the new 718 will look like. So here on the left side, we do have the Boxster version, the Spider version, of course. It looks very cool. It looks very, very similar to the proportions that we have right now, with the fluid lines in the side view, looking very clean. We have some nice taillights here as well, and we looks like we have some sort of cut in this area. I'm not sure what exactly this is, because it doesn't need to have a side scoop, because we don't have any cooling for the mid-positioned engine anymore. But it looks like we still have some sort of graphic here. I'm not sure what this will look like in production form, but the headlights looks very much inspired by the Taycan for sure. It looks almost identical to the headlights we have in the Taycan, with the new 4 position of the daytime run lights like that. And then we have big intakes in the lower section. This is of course to cool the battery pack in the lower section. We also have radar position right there. I'm not sure if these are openings or not. Can't really, they look to be closed up to me. So the only openings we have in the front end, from the prototype at least, looks to be those in the sides. I do like this hood, because this is a classic Porsche lines right here. These 2 lines in the hood looking very nice. And we have this bulge over the front axle, creating this muscle that we want to see in Porsches, specifically sports cars like this. Now looking at the side view, we already quickly talked about it, but it looks beautiful to me. It looks very, very much like the current one in proportions. We have a nice trunk or deck lid right here in the back, like we want to have on a roadster like this. Small greenhouse. We don't need a bigger greenhouse than this, because this is supposed to be a small and nimble little sports car. The wheels, hopefully they switch those out. Not a fan of either the design or the fact that they are black, but this again is just a prototype, so a lot of course is going to change for the production version. Now look at the rear end. The problem I have with the new Cayenne is that the rear end looked too static. We have 2 parallel lines. It looks like we have 2 parallel lines here as well. It doesn't really dip down or have any sort of dynamic vibe to the taillight design here. Not sure what this is going to look like, but it looks like we have 1 dip right here in the taillight housing itself, going in something like that. And then we have 2 lines for the LEDs, looking pretty clean to me. These 2 parallel lines, I feel it suits the Cayenne, the Cayman and the Boxster better than it does in the new SUV, the new Cayenne EV, for example. We have a properly designed bumper, no exhaust pipes in this case, but it would be nice to just have an internal combustion engine with 2 dual exhaust pipes, something like that in the middle. Just look, it just instantly becomes a lot more attractive. We have some vents here in the back as well, in addition to reflector lights right there. Now, looking at the renderings here, and the reason why I think these are close, but they're not, exactly what the vehicle is going to look like in production form. The reason being, if you look at this lower section right here, the top half of this front end look very, very close to what the production is going to look like for sure. The side view, maybe also. It looks like we have much more of a curvature in this area compared to what we have in the renderings. Here it looks very sharp, as you can see here. Very sharp corner there. I want to see more of a curvature going something like this, for example, for the production version. And then, of course, when we have the intakes in the front end, you can see that we have one single line going down like this. We don't have any zigzag design, something like this, like we have in this area. So what I want to see here is essentially just make this black and fill this area in, and this would be closer to what the production version is going to look like. We can clearly see that, I mean, right here with the spy photos for the prototypes. But other than that, it's very, very close to what the production version is going to look like. Still black wheels, want to switch those out. Thankfully for the Boxster version down here, we do have silver wheels, looking very, very nice. We have a different design. Let's remove this so you can see what the original looks like right there. We have a different design for the Boxster version down here when it comes to the intakes. But still, we still have this corner here, which is not visible on the prototypes, and that is the reason why I think we're just going to have something like this, an intake that goes something like this, and just a straight line in the side, similar to what we have right here, of course, on the spy photos. So very, very exciting times for Porsche, and they're bringing back plug-in hybrids, they're bringing back internal combustion engines to every single model that was initially developed to be purely EVs. And I think this is going to happen across the entire industry, to be honest, because we're seeing, specifically in this segment, when it comes to sports cars and EVs, they tend to just not do well. And imagine if you spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing this. Of course you're gonna be nervous. And if you have the ability to tweak the chassis and the platform to house an internal combustion engine in the new Cayman and the Boxster, of course you're gonna do that, because that is going to bring in, obviously, more sales. So it's going to be interesting to see what the production version is going to look like, and Porsche's idea or plan for EVs in general moving forward.